And all right, well, we are live now. Thanks everybody for joining us. I know maybe many of you are at the AMS conference.
Yes, we've
So
got
if
a
you're there,
big group of people here today, Clint, at
yep,
AMS in Washington, D.C. And I'm here with my friend Lauren from Texas. Yeah. So we've been going and visiting all of our elected officials here in Washington, D.C., and sharing the information about Montessori education and what's happening in Texas. And I wanted to be here to just say thank you to Dan Dominguez, who is our special guest. He's an amazing individual and has so much to offer school leaders. And I know that we'll all benefit from his wisdom today. So, Dan, thank you again for being here. And I'll
It's
turn
my
it back to
pleasure to
you,
be here,
Clint.
Lindsay.
all right. Thanks, Lindsay. And yeah, I'll just go through some quick logistics for everybody. Again, as just as a reminder, today is being recorded. It gets posted to the Montessori Foundation YouTube page within about 24 hours once we're done. And please use the Q&A feature or the chat feature. I'll be behind the scenes here monitoring that. So as you're going through, we'll certainly have some time here for some Q&A at the end. But if you have a question or any thoughts as we're going through, please use the Q&A, and we'll make sure we'll throw those Dan's way. And so, with that being said, Dan, I want to turn it over to you again. Echo what Lindsay had said, and thank you for your time, Dan, and for everybody. Maybe if you didn't see, in the invite here, I mean, Dan is the founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership, and today, and somebody with over 30 years of leadership experience with both Army Airborne Rangers and Fortune 500 National Sales Director. His advice and insights are extremely valuable, especially when it comes to leadership in schools. And I know today's topic is specifically is about self-awareness. And as Dan, I think you had said, is the most overlooked leadership skill in education. So why don't we segue in and maybe start there, and I'll turn it over to you, and I'll be hanging out here and keeping an eye on the chat for you.
Fantastic. Clint, thanks so much for having me on. If I'm able to present, I have a few slides that I can share. So if that's available to me, we can kind
You
of
should
walk
be able
people
to.
through
You
some
should
of
be able to
that.
share your screen.
Yeah, right now it says host isn't allowing sharing, but I'm
Hold
sure
on.
you can allow
Let's
that.
uh let's do this. Now you're officially a co-host, and see if you can try to do it again.
Well, look at that. That looks perfect.
There it is.
All right. So, it's interesting, when Lindsay reached out about presenting to educators, I primarily work, a lot of my work is done with people who are not just educators, but I work with leaders of companies, right? And a lot of the time, what we find out is that there's a self-awareness gap in leadership. And that goes across the board, whether you are an educator, an administrator, or you're a CEO of a Fortune 100 company or a small startup. So we like to say, why not leadership? We want to start with self-awareness. There's a book behind me called Heroic Leadership that was one of the first leadership books that I ever read. And it talked about the four pillars of great leadership. And the first one is self-awareness, understanding ourselves, what it is that drives us, what we're driven to do. And then what we've done is just taken it another step further at Why Not Leadership and look at what drives everybody on your team. Because when you know what drives you and when you know what drives them, it's a lot easier to communicate with each other. So, we're going to talk about, how do you get from purpose to performing today? And we're going to talk a little bit about who's in the right place. So, if you're in the room today, you're in the right place. If you have ever wanted to connect more easily with your ideal client, and I know for you guys, we're talking about ideal parents, the ideal families for your schools. We also are in the right place if you have ever been surprised by the resignation of a key member of your team. You ever had somebody come to you and say, "Hey, I'm quitting. I no longer like it here. I'm going somewhere else." But it's a surprise to you. You had no idea that this person was unhappy, wasn't connecting with you, wasn't connecting with your staff, wasn't connecting with the mission of your school. Raise your hand or put something in the chat if that has ever happened to you. If you ever had somebody really key just surprised, you ever been surprised completely by the resignation of a key team member, somebody you really counted on. So if you've ever had that happen to you, I think you're in the right place. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You have a great team and they're talented and they're competent, but you want to help them find their zone of genius so that they can contribute at their highest level. So if that describes any of you, I'd love for you to just in the chat or raise your hand or however it is that the webinar is working. I'd love to hear if any of those things apply to you, just so we know that we have the right people in the room and then this is a good topic for you.
As we're waiting for some replies, I mean, I think it's a great topic, and we've been talking a lot about leadership and even turnover amongst leadership lately. And as you bring up the point, Dan, about does it ever surprise you? I feel like it always kind of catches us by surprise. You
Yeah.
always hear like, "Oh, I didn't expect that to happen." And so I think this is a perfect time for it, as especially as we're heading into the summer for schools, and there's always a little bit of turnover amongst leadership as well. So I know I'm focusing on that one, but that one really struck to me based upon especially some topics that we've been talking about lately here on the webinar.
So we're not seeing a lot of responses, and that's okay. If you guys as we continue to talk through, just feel free to jump in there. One of the things I said I wanted to talk about, why is self-awareness the missing leadership skill in education? So I'm going to give you guys a few examples of how we work, and maybe that'll spark some conversation for you guys too. So let me just continue and share a little bit more about what we're going to do today. Now we're here for about what 30 to 45 minutes, Clint.
Yeah, right in that
Yeah.
range. Yeah, about 45 minutes is always
Yeah, so I'm
great.
going to give you as much as I can. We have about 30 45 minutes, but there's no way we can cover everything. So I'm going to cover just a few things that I think will be important to you. We're going to teach you what a Y operating system is. It's the basis of everything that we do, and there are lots of assessment. My inviter Lindsay is a great proponent of Strengths Finders. Any kind of assessment that you can use that helps you understand yourself better and the people around you better is important. The reason I use the Y operating system is because it's one of the best affective assessments out there. When we're looking at what motivates people, I have found it to be so accurate and so easy to take. This is an assessment that Clint takes about 10 minutes to complete, but it gives us so much information that I love using it. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that today. We're going to talk about how to use that to attract, as you guys have talked about in previous podcasts or webcasts. How do you attract more of your ideal clients and make more meaningful connections with them? So again, as we're talking about families, as we're talking about Montessori schools and attracting people, one of your co-hosts always talks about we're dating the wrong people, right? This is a great way to make sure you're attracting people that are looking for what it is that you offer. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how do you use this to build strong teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a loop. And again, I'm taking you through this really simple self-awareness task that we do using the Y operating system. So the first thing I'll share with you is here are the 9 Ys. And Clint, I don't know if you've done it, but I know Lindsay is certified in this assessment. So we know that we've done this work with over 300,000 people around the world. We give them the assessment and we figure out, okay, what is their why? What is the why that drives them? So there's 9 of them, and we all have all of them, just like every assessment tells you. Even on Myers-Briggs, we all have a little bit of all of them. There's Strength Finders, there's DISC, there's so many assessments out there. This one looks at your motivation. So as I share with you these 9 whys, think of people you might know or people you work with who might have this as their why. So I'll go through them very briefly. The first one is contribute. These are people, and we find a lot of them in the education system, people whose main driver is to contribute, to make a difference. For them, it's all about helping others, making a difference, making a positive impact in the lives of others. So if your why is contribute, you're driven by making a difference. That's my why, by the way. The second one is trust. These are people who are driven by building trust. So for them, if they trust you and you trust them, sky's the limit. If you violate their trust, you can count that relationship is permanently damaged, if not completely severed. So if you've met someone like that, we know those people, right? They're the people that are very reliable. They do what they say they're going to do, but they expect the same from you. Third one is make sense. People who like to make sense of things, especially they're complex or complicated. For them, everything is about how do we solve problems. They love solving problems. So these are the people on your team, or if you're an administrator, or if you're a teacher, these are the people on your team, your fellow teachers who love solving problems. They're the people you can throw a lot of information at, and they quickly process it and say, "Ha, I know what we need to do." Often they're referred to as, they're thought of as really smart because, again, they solve problems quickly. They have their gift is they process information fast. So if you have someone like that on your team, and I want you, as we're going through this, think of people you know, and even put them in the chat. Say, I know someone. That's my principal. That's my math teacher. That's my spouse. A lot of people see their spouses in this. The fourth one, better way. These are people who are constantly saying, there's got to be a better way to do this. And when we figure who these people are, they're great because what they do is they take stuff that exists and make it better. They're always looking for a better way. And since they're better way people, one of the things they can't help is sharing. So these are those teachers or administrators that find better ways to do things, and then they share it with the world. So these are your innovators, people that can sometimes take things from one industry and apply it in another. That's what I've been able to do with the information and knowledge that I gained in 11 years in the military, 20 some years in corporate, and now as a leadership consultant. I take stuff that I learned in all those areas and I help other people use it in the areas that they're working in today. The fifth one is right way. So right way people, and you guys probably recognize these people. These are people that like to do things the right way. For them, it's all about process and systems. So these are the people that if you have a rule or a process and a system, they follow it. They're the ones that say, hey, that's the way it's supposed to be done. If there's not a process and a system, guess what? These are the people you can count on to create a process and a system. So again, they make order out of chaos. They love to take things and make sure they're orderly. There's a process and a system that we can follow. And they're great to have in an organization because an organization like a school doesn't run just on great ideas. They have to be implemented. These are the people that create the policies and procedures that help us implement those ideas. The next one is challenge. So these are the people that we know that are always challenging the status quo. You recognize them and you probably say, hey, all of my kids have this. Why? And we hear this from kids all the time. Why do we have to do it that way? But when these people become adults, they're your creatives. They're the ones that say, hey, how come we have to follow that process? They're willing to challenge the way things are done. So these are people that we want in our organizations because they're the ones that come up with the great ideas that other people may not have thought of. The challenge is we have to put them in the right place, right? You take a person like this with their creativity and you put them in a box, they will wilt. And this is so much like what we know about Montessori, right? You take a child who is curious and wants to do things his own way, and you put him or her in a box, they will wilt. You put them in a place where they can be creative, do things their own way, come up with ideas and dream, and they will flourish. Same thing you do with these people with the why of challenge. So again, these are your creatives, the people that want to do things outside the box and different. A lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference, Dan, between better way people and challenge people? Better way people take things that exist and make them better. Challenge people take things that exist and just throw them up in the air and see what happens. They're extremely creative. Sometimes, and this is one of my top three. Sometimes I hear all the time, Dan, not every great idea is a good idea, not something we want to implement in our school, in our system, in our company. But there's a lot of ideas that will come from these people, and pairing them with someone who has a why of better way is a great way to filter those ideas to get to the best ones. We're getting to the last three, mastery. In education, we see some of these people. These are people who love to do things, learn things at a deep level. So for them, it's all about mastering whatever it is that they're passionate about. You recognize them because they become subject matter experts in whatever it is that they're passionate about. You ask them a question, if they're into education, you ask them about Montessori education, and they will have learned everything there is to know about it. And they're great subject matter experts that you can go to when you have a question because they'll have that depth of knowledge. Their challenge can sometimes be analysis paralysis, right? We call that paralysis by analysis, where they know so much it makes them very deliberate when they make decisions. But we know that when they do make decisions, they're based in great knowledge. The second to last one is clarify. So these are people for whom clarity is very important. Clint, I don't know if you've ever been at a workshop or done a workshop where you're talking to the group and you ask for questions, and these are the people that have a lot of questions. Everybody's ready to go to lunch, and this person's like, "Well, wait, what about this? What about this?" So they're constantly asking because they need clarity, right? If they don't have clarity, they're not moving forward. Imagine these people sitting on a fence. I like to paint this picture. Imagine this person sitting on a fence, and they have questions. And if you don't answer their questions, they're not jumping one way or the other until all their questions are answered. The beauty about it is once you answer their questions, guess what? They will move forward with conviction, and they will move forward because their questions have been answered. So very important to respect the fact that they need that clarity to move forward. And then the last one is my favorite. One of my favorites is simplify. These are people for whom simplicity is very important. They like things simple. They will take a 10-step process and break it down into three. They're the people that, if you create a program for them to follow and it's got a lot of steps to it, they'll say, "Hey, come on, Clint, give me just one thing I need to do in my school. What's one thing I can do? Just narrow it down to one. What's the biggest thing that's going to make the biggest difference? I want to do that one thing really well." So for them, it's all about simplicity. They're also great communicators because they like to break things down to their simplest form. So you can take something that's really complex, give it to them, and they'll make it so that everybody in the school, including the elementary kids, can understand it. They like to keep things very simple. So imagine everybody that you know has every one of these whys to some degree, but their top three make up their why operating system. So I'm gonna give you a pause here, Clint. I don't know if you have any questions, but we're gonna get into, okay, how does this work? But I'd love to hear if you have any questions, or if anybody in the chat has a question, I'd love to answer it. And if you thought of someone, maybe we can talk about them, because I do like to use real life examples when I'm talking about this stuff. So if you think of someone who maybe has the why of contribute, trust, make sense, challenge. I know we all know somebody who's always asking the question, why do we have to do it that way? So Clint, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say this is one of those where sometimes we get, a lot of questions that come in, and sometimes not. It's kind of like you were just describing, which is like you're doing a workshop, right? Somebody's like ready to go, and somebody's got questions. Uh, I don't see any in here right now. So what I would say for right now, Dan, is yeah, why don't you keep rolling
Yeah, let's
and
keep rolling along.
yeah.
Fabulous. So let's do this. What is the why operating system, right? I said this is the key assessment that I do with everybody that I work with, whether they're a principal, a superintendent, a CEO, a founder. I want to know, okay, what is it that drives you? So let's break it down. A why operating system is your why. Why you do what you do. So one of those 9 whys is your why. It's what drives you. It's your motivation. The second part is your how. One of those 9 whys is your how. It's how you bring your why to life. It's your process. And then one of those 9 whys is your what. Ultimately, what you bring, your deliverable. What is it that people can count on from you? So it doesn't make a lot of sense unless I show an example. So my good friend Kent Cravens, he's the former president of the Albuquerque Realtors Association. And so I asked him, "Hey, do you mind if I share this with people?" So this is his profile. His why is to find a better way. His how is to challenge the status quo, and his what is to build trust. So when we look at Kent, we know that he's motivated by finding better ways and sharing them. And if you know him, if as I do, I've known him for many years. He's one of those people that is constantly asking the question, how can we do this better? He's been CEO of many organizations, and everywhere he goes, he's always striving to make that organization better. How he does that, his how is to challenge the status quo. So how he does it is by saying, "Hey, what if we did it differently?" right? In order to make it better. And then is what is trust. So ultimately, what he brings are trusting relationships where others can count on him. He is someone who puts a lot of value in doing what he sets out to do. So any organization he goes to, any organization he takes over, he's there to make it better. He's going to make it better by challenging the way things are done. And what he's ultimately going to do is build trust with the people that he's working with in order for them to have a better way and challenge the way things are done. So if that makes sense to you, give us a thumbs up in the chat, or Clint, let me know if that's making up to you. Soraya, I saw you said it's a great topic. Thank you for giving us some practical tips. If you have any questions, Soraya, please jump in the chat and let us know. So how do we use this, right, for more effective connections with our ideal clients? So what we know is that this is stuff that's based in science. It's basic science, but it's important that we know where it comes from, right? So I'm going to give you guys, for those of you that are really educated about the brain, and you're Montessori educators, so I know you are. But let's talk about two parts of the brain that we're going to focus on. The first one is the neocortex. So the neocortex is where rational, analytical thought and language go. That's where numbers go. That's where information goes. When we're talking about people who are giving a lot of information. So as we were talking about earlier, if you give a presentation and you spend a lot of time giving people a lot of information, it's going to go to their neocortex. And what does the neocortex do? Well, it's going to analyze it. So as we were talking, as we're listening to previous interviews that you guys have done, people are always asking the question, how do we get people to be, number one, interested in our school, and then once they do the tour, to become members of our community, right? Sign up, register their kids, and become a member of the school. Well, if you give them a lot of information during that tour, they're going to do what all of us do when we get a lot of information. We have to analyze it. So it's going to go to our neocortex. And in that neocortex, it's going to process that information. And then they're going to tell us that thing that we love to hear, especially if you're a busy principal and you took time out of your day to give somebody, or a school director, and you took the time to give somebody a tour. They're going to give you that answer you love to hear. Let us think about it. Right? Because people need time to think about it. There's another part of the brain where we actually make decisions, that's where the limbic brain, it's where we make 100% of our decisions. It's where feelings like trust and loyalty reside. And unfortunately, we don't have a capacity for language in that part of the brain. So if you've ever made a decision, sometimes we call it a gut decision, or if you've ever bought something you didn't need, yeah, raise your hand if that's happened, right? Um, Great. I've got a question from Soraya. How can we change the culture of a school for a betterment of children, but the owner is the obstacle? Great question. So Soraya, I would probably need a lot more information, but here's what we would do if it was me working with them. I'd want to meet that owner. I would want to meet that owner and find out what it is that motivates them, and make sure that it matches up with the motivations of the people around them. And are we communicating from that limbic place? So as we're looking at this, brain biology, this is actually a great question, Soraya. So our limbic brain is where we make decisions. So if instead of telling somebody during a tour everything about our school, what our graduation rate is, what our average test score is, how many kids we get into the next level, that's all information that needs to process and analyze. And when we share information, guess what? People want to compare us to the other three schools they're touring, right? What if instead we shared a limbic message, uh, which which is where the why, how, and what reside. The why resides in the limbic brain. So if you remember our friend Kent, his why is to find a better way. And notice that um, his why statement says, "I believe that success happens when we find a better way and are able to share it." Right. So we're starting with an I believe statement or a we believe statement. One of the things that Simon Sinek, who originated this talk about why, said is, when we tell people what we believe, we attract people who believe what we believe. And Clint, I might actually share a video since we've got an audience that's a little shy. I'd love to share a video I did with a school that I was working with. They brought me in because they were having the same problems that I've heard over and over on your podcast, where they're maybe attracting the wrong family, and as soon as something doesn't go their way, they're gone. So what if we could start, and Soraya, this might be a great answer to your question. So Clint, if you could come on real quick, I'll find that video and then I'll put it on my screen and share it with you guys. It's a short video, but it's the end product of a workshop that we did with this school to just help them put out their message about what they believe. Does that sound like a good plan?
Great, let's do it.
All right, let me do that. And if you want to entertain our audience for a second, I'll get that up real quick.
For anybody on here, is anybody at AMS at the moment? Curiosity, or headed there, I should say, maybe this weekend.
Yeah, let us know where you are. By the way, you can, if you're Soraya, thank you for your question. But anyone else, if you're, just let us know where you're calling in from or where you're zooming in from, so we can. Perfect. We know change is difficult for some adults, so the new person needs to adapt to the existing way. Great comment. So I've got the video ready. Let me make sure that you guys can see it. Just tell me if you see a picture of a school, Clint, in the mountains.
Yep.
All right, so I'll give you guys a little bit of background. So again, starting with that limbic system, right? Telling people what we believe. One of the great points that Simon Sinek makes in his famous presentation, Start With Why, he talks about Martin Luther King. You know, Martin Luther King didn't tell us his plan. He told us his beliefs, right? He told us what he believed. He said, I believe that one day my children will be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. And if you believed what he believed, you walked, you rode your bike, you hitchhiked, you rode a bus, you flew, you did whatever you could to get to Washington, D.C. to hear his I Have a Dream speech, because he attracted the people that believed what he believed. The other thing we do when we tell people what we believe is we attract people who believe what we believe, and we also repel people who don't believe what we believe. So it's a really powerful statement we can make when we share with people. This is a Catholic classical school facing a lot of the challenges, I think, that some of our Montessori schools, because they're different, right? This is not just not only not a public school, it's a Catholic school, but it's also a classical Catholic, one of very few. It's the only one in New Mexico. So they have a unique curriculum that they present, just like Montessori schools. And so we help put this together for them, and I'll share it with you guys, and maybe we can have some discussion on it, Clint, when we finish. But let me hit play on this. Let me make sure you guys can hear it. There we go. And let's play it, and then we'll talk about it.
We believe that truth does exist, and our students can find it. And it is a person, Jesus Christ. We believe parents play the most important role in educating their children, and that schools should support them in this lofty calling. And in cultivating habits of discipline and attention through memorization, and building a culture of life that reminds students that they are created in the image and likeness of God. We believe that faith and reason are complementary and not opposed to one another, and that teachers should be well compensated for the work they do. We believe in building a sustainable foundation for our school so that we can raise saints and form scholars, and in giving our students a love for their faith and their country. We believe in forming our country's future citizens who will be the leaders in the next generation, and that ad majorem Dei gloriam is not just a motto, but a way of life, because Ignatian values never go out of style. We believe that our students are God's masterpiece, and we can help them to discover that by teaching them to see they are part of a larger story. We do this through the study of history. that scripture should be a part of everything our children learn in school, not just in religion class, and that a classical education forms the whole person and leads the child to wonder, awe, and the building of imagination. And finally, we believe in preserving what is true, good, and beautiful, and immersing our students into an environment filled with beauty so that they will find the author of everything beautiful, God Himself. Holy Child Catholic School, raising saints and forming scholars.
Let me make sure I stop YouTube because it'll.
That's right. About a year before my conversion, my wife.
There we go. Let's make sure we stop YouTube because otherwise you guys will hear the next thing that's in the feed. So love to hear some thoughts. Clint, if you have any thoughts on that, and I'll share, what the point of sharing that with you is. But Clint, do you have any questions or any thoughts based on what you just saw?
Not, not yet. I would say. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, so I'll share. So there's a couple of things. One of the things I love to point out in that video is did they share with us their graduation rate? The number of students they've sent to onto high school that are highly rated, how many of their kids have gone on to college or rated at the highest level on the proficiency exams that there are. No, they don't. What they do is they tell us what they believe. Now, we put this video together about 4 years ago, and this school has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars by sharing this video on the homepage of their webpage, sharing it with donors, sharing it with parents. So I've heard in a couple of the previous episodes, we talk about how do we prepare parents for a tour of our school so that they know what they're going to get. This video does a great job of letting those parents know, hey, this is what you can expect. This is what we believe at Holy Child Catholic School. And if you believe what we believe, then you probably should come tour our school. You should register your kids, and you should join our community. It's not about they're not worried about what's the student teacher ratio. Those things will get taken care of, and we're going to answer those questions. But we want you to make a decision in your limbic brain that tells you, okay, this is a place that I am connecting with, because you're either going to get a yes or a no, right? A person's either going to connect with that or they're not. But that's the importance of connecting with the limbic brain, because when you do that, then you get people to make a decision. I always tell people it's better to get a no today than to get a maybe that lasts for months, right? You've got to do all the follow up and checking in with them. And have you looked at other schools? You know what? No, you're not a fit for me. I don't believe what you believe. Or yes, I believe in it so strongly. Where do I sign up? How do I become a member of this community? Because I believe in all those things. And if you do, great. Let's welcome you into our school. So let's go back and let's share some more of the presentation. That'll give you a little bit more information. Um, So, how do you use when you know this? So, Soraya, as you were asking the question, I'd love to know what drives your owner, right? What is it that drives him or her to do what they do? So, we've got Kent Cravens up on the screen. So, if we want to find out who his ideal client is, and then we do this with schools. So, we do this with, a school can either have the YOS of their founder, or they can come up with their own, right? Sometimes they say, our founder is our person. So for this case, we'll use Kent as the founder, and we'll say, okay, who's his ideal clients? Well, his ideal clients are looking for his why, they're looking for his how, and they're looking for his what. So what does that mean? Well, that means that they're looking for a better way, right? They're looking for something better. So if they're looking for something better, Kent's going to be their guy. If they're looking for something different because he's going to challenge the status quo, then he is an ideal client for them. And if they're looking for someone they can trust, does that make sense? So again, all of us have a top three. Figuring out what those top three are help us communicate better with everyone we meet because we know what we bring. So for myself, it's contribute, challenge, and make sense. So I'm looking for people who are looking to make a difference. I'm looking for people who are looking for something different, and I'm looking for people who are looking for solutions that make sense. And if you're looking for those things, we're going to work together really well. If you're not, that's okay. Let me help you find someone else, or let me refer you to someone else, or tell me no pretty much right away so that we can move on and I can concentrate on the people that I really work with best. Let me know if that makes sense for you guys. And let
Yeah,
me turn on the
absolutely. And I
chat.
don't know if Dan, did you see Soraya had said, have these schools practice their beliefs? Parents should watch for those beliefs in action while observing.
Yes, absolutely. So isn't that great? That's a great comment, Soraya, because when we put a video like that out, we're telling people, hey, these are our beliefs. So when you come tour our school, are you seeing those beliefs in action, right? And when you go spend a day and you go talk to the first grade or second grade teacher, whatever grade your kids are in, preschool. This school happens to be a pre-K through 8. So whatever grade your kids are in, as you meet those teachers, are they living those beliefs? And I can tell you, when we do this work, we work with not just the staff, we also work with the student, the parent, teacher organization, we work with the board, and we work with everybody who has an impact on the school so that when we come up with these we believe statements, they're not just made in a vacuum. And then we share them with the school. So there's a whole lot of other work that goes into creating something like this, but the video is kind of just the end result of doing all the work to figure out what it is that we believe. Now you're probably asking yourself, okay, Dan, so now I know, what a YOS is, and I use other assessments. This isn't the only one. This is just the first one. Because if we're going to talk about self-awareness and what Chris Lowney uh, said was the first step in great leadership is understanding yourself, your strengths, what drives you, and what drives the people around you. It's that self-awareness. So how do we use this to build stronger teams? And so I always like to share how we use this to allow schools to really work together better. And whether it's a school or any organization, we believe in starting with the leader, understanding yourself. So we call that know yourself. The second part of that is knowing your team, understanding their strengths of your team members and how they relate to each other. The other thing that we do is we have the team understand each other. So if you're in a school with 7 to 20 people, everybody has different strengths. So when we get to know what each other's strengths and motivations are, we're able to take advantage of those strengths and those motivations. We want to make sure we have people in the right seat on the bus. That's we call that knowing each other. And then one of the most valuable things that people get out of this is understanding their leader. And I did this wasn't part of the process in the beginning, but as I conducted multiples of these sessions with companies and schools, one of the things that I constantly heard from the leader was, wow, that was really powerful to have them understand me. So imagine Kent Cravens, whose why is better way, his how is challenge, and his what is trust. Everybody on his team knew, and this is how we use it, right? If we want to Kent to buy into an idea, we have to show him how it's better. We have to show him how it's different. We have to show him how it builds trust. And if we do those things, then he's gonna be more likely to buy into what it is that we're presenting because we're showing it to him in his language. And the last step there is, obviously, know no limits. Teams that understand each other at this level, they go through the 4 steps, definitely know each other at a higher level, and really know no limits because they become engaged, they become empowered, and they become energized by the fact that they are now being seen, heard, and understood at a completely different level than before we did this work. So I'll share with you a couple more insights. So what do we know when we know this about our teams? And again, this could be the YOS, it could be another assessment that you use. And I know that there are lots of them out there, but we understand what our potential tension points are, right? We talked about people with the why of challenge who might clash with people who have the why of right way. Somebody who's constantly looking for a better way to do things or a different way of doing things might clash with someone who really values doing things by the book and following processes like a right way person. So you have your systems people that follow the rules, and you have your challenge people who like to break the rules. There might be some tension there, but understanding why that tension is there is important. Notice the illustration there is two people sitting across from each other or standing across from each other at a desk. Often we'll do this demonstration during a workshop. Is I'll ask somebody I'll write the number 9 on a piece of paper, and I'll put it between two people. And the person that's facing it upright, it looks like a number 9, but the person sitting across from them, it looks like a number 6. And both of them are correct. Unless we put a little line under the 9 or a little line under the 6, we don't know which way is right side up, right? So what it takes sometimes in order for us to understand someone else is to invite them to see things from our perspective. Hey, come over to my side of the table so that you can understand what I'm seeing. Or vice versa. We say, hey, can I go over to your side and see what you're seeing? Because a lot of times it's just a matter of perspective. And this is how we are naturally wired. Motivations are wired into us from a young age. So if you're wired to challenge the status quo, you probably have been doing it your whole life. And if you're wired to do things the right way, you've probably been doing it your whole life. And that's how life makes sense to you. I also like to use the example of a contract. Contracts are, part of life in education and in business. A right way person will look at a contract and say, if it doesn't say in that contract that we can do it, we can't do it, right? And a challenge person will look at that same thing and say, well, if it doesn't say we can't do it, we can do it. And they're reading the exact same words. So it's a matter of perspective. But there's also, synergies. There's a lot of good synergies that come from working together. People with the why of simplify that like to keep things simple tend to get along really well with people who like to solve problems. They just both like to, hey, let's solve the problem. Let's keep it simple. The whole point of it is, how can we better work together? So I mentioned a few of the tension points. Here they are illustrated. Challenge people and right way people might not get along because one likes to challenge the rules, one likes to follow the rules. Mastery and simplify, as we talked about. People with the why of mastery have a deep thirst for knowledge. They want to know as much as they can about everything. So they're looking for the book, and then they're looking for the footnotes, and they want to read that book. They want to read all the books that are in the end notes, right? And they want to become experts at it. Simplify people just say, hey, you know what? Give me the cliff notes. I don't need to know everything. I just need to know what I need to do so that my school can succeed. It then makes sense and clarify people. Again, makes sense is problem solvers. They are always looking for answers. Clarify people are always looking for questions. What have we forgotten to ask? And I think it's always good to share maybe an example of, this was a law firm that I worked with. We worked with them about 3 years ago, and we worked with them again this past year. So just did a refresh with them. But if you notice, the leader there has a why of trust and a how of clarify. So when we highlight that, the reason we highlight it is because, as we talked about, people with the how of clarify will ask a lot of questions because clarity is important to them. Well, we noticed after 6 months, after we had done this work with them, she lost all of these people on the right-hand side of the slide. Most of them had the why of makes sense. And as we talked about, that's a tension point because clarify people are looking for questions, makes sense people are looking for answers. Now, apply this to a law firm. These are all attorneys. And the boss, the senior partner, was asking a lot of questions. Well, if you're an attorney and you're on your way to a case and the boss is asking you a lot of questions like, hey, did you contact the opposing counsel? Did you check with the evidence? Did you make sure you talked to the judge about this evidence that we're bringing up? So these are all questions that she needed in order to have clarity. But to these people who are, by the way, they would say, hey, I went to law school too. I kind of know what I'm doing. It felt like she might have been questioning their competence, right? And all it was she was looking for clarity. So not knowing that, not having communicated that, it led to some tension that eventually led to turnover. So we actually, when when I met with this CEO 6 months after the workshop and I found out about the turnover issue, I asked, hey, do you mind if we do some research? If I just take a look at what the results were and maybe look at some exit interviews. And that's what we found. There was a lot of people who were saying, you know what, I just don't feel trusted. And it wasn't at all that she didn't trust him. It's that she needed clarity. So she went back to the drawing board, interviewed, obviously rebuilt her team, replaced all these people. And now she's very clear with them because her why is trust, her how is clarify, and her what is to contribute. She lets people know, look, if you work with me, the first thing I do is I believe in building trust. So if you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it, because the only way that you can ruin this relationship is by not doing what you say you're going to do. I'm also a clarifier. How I build trust is by asking questions. So I may have a lot of questions for you. Let's make sure we build time into your schedule for me to ask you questions that I just need to know so that I feel comfortable about the cases that you're working on, the case you're going to court on, the case you're trying to settle, whatever it is, so that we can do this in a trusting way. And ultimately, what I want to do is contribute to the success of our clients. Our clients come to us because they have suffered a loss. They have suffered some kind of wrongdoing and they're suing for a reason. And we want to get them the best settlement possible. And our job is to contribute to the most successful possible outcome for them. So I think, the reason I share this is how we use it in organizations. This is what you can learn, again, from the YOS. We pair this with the Kolbe assessment, which is an assessment that looks at how we take action. And when we know this, the motivations, which come from the YOS, and the way people take action from their Kolbe assessment, we know a lot more about them and we can work with them better. Audre Lorde said, it's not our differences that divide us. It's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. As you know, as I talked about, there's over 440 possible combinations of why, how, and what. Everybody is going to be unique. Everybody's going to have a different why. Maybe they have the same why. They might have a different how and a different what. Just knowing that, putting it up on the board and looking at it and understanding each other. One of my favorite things about conducting these workshops is watching people in the room laugh, because they will see their differences and they'll laugh and say, oh my gosh, I see that in them all the time. As they get to know each other and understand each other at a deeper level, they understand that maybe that person doesn't hate you so much as they just do things differently. And so that's how we use it in helping teams become even better. That's how we help leaders become even better leaders. So here's my challenge to you guys. I was at Mass a few days ago, and the story of the man at the pool at Bethesda came up. And one of the things that stood out from that story is, Jesus sees him, he's suffering. He's been there 38 years waiting to be healed. That's a long time to have hope. And now here comes somebody that can heal him. But the first question Jesus asks him is, do you want to be healed? And the answer was yes, right? And so my question to you, all of you that are on the phone, is do you want to be a better leader? If you want to be a better leader, then this could be something that you can use. I'm sure Clint will put my information in the show notes, but if you're interested in learning more, contact me at dan@whynotleadership.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Dan Dominguez, Why Not Leadership, and our website is whynotleadership.com. If anything that you heard today resonated with you, or if you know a leader that could benefit from learning more about themselves, by all means, get a hold of me, Clint. I know you guys will share my contact information.
Absolutely.
And I actually have a short video from a participant in one of our workshops that I could share if you're interested.
Sure.
It's just Dr. Chelsea. We did this workshop with a medical practice of about 33 people, and we did it on a Saturday, and she had a great experience, so I thought I'd share it with you.
That'd be great.
So this is Dr. Chelsea Sanchez, pediatric physician.
So today we did the Y workshop, and it was fantastic. It was really good to talk to my colleagues, learn about how they think and why they think, and to learn about myself and how this kind of program and approach applies to my work in the corporate field in a clinic, but also to think about how it could apply in my personal life with my husband and my children. I would say do it. I think it's one of the best things you can do is learn about yourself and how you approach things. And it's hard to dive in with other people if you don't know where you're coming from yourself. So this is huge. Personal development is one of the best things you can do. Dan is great. He brought high energy. He kept us all engaged. He was really relevant and applicable, and it was not boring or tedious or felt like time was wasted at all. It was a great use of our time.
So I think that's what we were. I think we set the goal to kind of let you know a little bit more about the real key that I think for leaders is, number one, are you a leader? Do you want to be a better leader? And do you think you could be a better leader through self-awareness? And those are the questions that we ask. And if you say yes to any of those questions, we'd love to work with you. Clint, I know you guys do a lot of work with the Montessori programs. Is there any questions from you in terms of what we talked
Yeah.
about today?
Yeah. So one question I had, how can a leader maybe identify when somebody is potentially maybe in the wrong role? Like they're a good person, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're, a really good person, but maybe they're not in the right role. How can you identify that or address that?
Yeah, great question. So that again, when we talk about, and again, when this is the work that I do, when we talk about self-awareness, I love doing a leadership inventory, right? Because you can have all the right intentions. You're a good person. You love your school, but maybe what your school needs is structure and they need policies and procedures. But what if you're motivated by challenging the status quo? What if what drives you is improving things? But your school doesn't need any improving. It needs to be ordered and organized. So you might be a good person for lots of great ideas, and it doesn't mean you can't be the headmaster. It means that you have to hire people that have those complementary skills that you don't have, right? And that's why the self-assessment becomes very important. Everybody thinks, "Oh man, I'm the wrong person for the job." No, you're not. You were put in that position. The board hired you because you're a leader. You probably have a track record of leadership and they want you to lead that school. You may not, you put me in charge of creating policies and procedures. Good luck waiting for that to happen. So, what I will do is I will surround myself with people who have those skills and I'll make sure and give them the power. And that's the other thing. You also have to make sure that as a leader, you're humble enough to allow your team, your subordinates to do what they do best. So surround yourself with the people that have the skills that you don't have and then give them the power, especially those right way people. Like I said, a lot of schools need that. I spent 27 years in corporate, and as a leader I always knew, here's where I'm good at challenging the status quo, coming up with lots of ideas. But guess what? I better surround myself with people that'll pull limits on me. Because one of the worst things you can do is and you've seen it probably, Clint, that leader with lots of great ideas, but they change direction so often that they drive
Yeah.
their team crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And what people say is like, what's the new hot topic this week? Oh, don't worry. He'll get tired of it. And next week we'll be doing something different. So what you do, I call it the Walt Disney effect. Walt Disney was the visionary, right? He was the guy that came up with all the ideas. He was a great illustrator. Guess who was his right hand man? Roy Disney. Roy created all the systems and processes that make Disneyland run so smoothly. He was the implementer, right? So knowing what your role is, every school has to have a visionary, every school has to have an implementer, and every school has to have an optimizer. And if you have those three roles filled and you fill them with the right people, someone who's good at creating policies and procedures, someone who's good at communicating between the leader and the implementer, and then you've got everybody else around him supporting that same vision, and you're clear. And I think clarity is really important, clear on what it is that you do, how it is that you make a difference in the world, and how you make a difference for others. Let's communicate that. Let's communicate it from a whole staff perspective or from a founder perspective. As Soraya was asking, what if the owner is the person that's holding you back from improving your culture? Let's figure out what's important to them. And let's make sure that it fits with the school, because it's not that they're wrong. It's that maybe they're just not expressing it in the right way.
All right. I know we're coming up here on the hour. I want to respect Dan, your time and everybody's time, but I have one other question for you.
Yes.
Maybe two other questions. We'll do like a lightning round here. Um, what questions do you think leaders should be asking their team that you feel like they aren't? What's the thing that like without a doubt they're just not asking their team that you feel everybody should be asking of them?
You know, that's a great question, and I think that one of the most important things, at the end of the day, we all want to feel seen, heard, and understood, right? If you don't have access to the YOS discovery for your staff, I think a great question to ask is, what motivates you? Why are you here? What motivates you to come to work every day? And then once you get that answer is, as leaders, we do performance appraisals all the time. We see how the teacher is doing. We see how the sales director is doing, and we look at numbers. I think the next most important question is number one, what motivates you? What motivates you? So I can talk to you about what's important to you. Secondly, is what can I do to help you? I think as a leader, there's no more important question than to say, what
Right.
are your challenges and how can I help? As leaders, it's not our job to teach every class. It's not our job to deal with every irate parent. It's not our job to deal with every child who's possibly not performing. It's our job to make it easy for those people that are the best at it to do their job. So what tools do they need and how can we help them? And I think if you ask those two questions, what motivates you and how can I help? I think you're going to go a long way towards building connection. And then, of course, you've got to follow up. It doesn't help if I ask Clint, hey, what would help you and if you tell me, 3 weeks in a row, Dan, it would be really nice if I had a key to my classroom. It's a simple thing, but, every time I come, I have to go to the office and have somebody let me in. That's a simple thing to fix. And of course, there's probably usually bigger issues than that. So I think listening, taking action, and asking those two key questions. What motivates you? Why are you here? And how can I help you?
Now, you may have just answered my next question. And by the way, for everybody on here, whynotleadership.com. I just put it in the chat. Go there. You can connect with Dan and talk to Dan about how he can help your team and your school. And I'll leave with this, which is, and again, like I said, you've given us a lot of great tangible advice and things to do, and you just even ended it right there with some great things that you could do. But is there one action, maybe one other thing you want to point out that, hey, when people leave today, like what's one action they should all do?
Yeah. I think, since I talk on self-awareness, and one of the things that I would ask is ask yourself, why do I do what I do? And when I talk about that is there are patterns in our lives. So as a contributor, Clint, I know that I am always looking to help, to the point that it's to my own detriment. I'm always wanting to help. How can I help Clint? Clint, you could say, Dan, I need some help. And I'm going to say yes before I even know what you need help with. You might say, I need help because I think I need a heart operation. They just told me that my heart's failing. Well, I'm going to say yes before you told me. And then as soon as you tell me what you need, I'm going to do everything I can to connect you with one of my friends who's a cardiologist or one of my friends who works at the hospital. That's what drives me. So the challenge of it is I'm often spread thin because there's nobody I'll say no to, right? So
Right.
ask yourself, what are those patterns in your life that you notice yourself doing all the time? Because that's your why. Are you a trust person? Are you somebody that if somebody violates your trust, they're dead to you? Are you a make sense person? Do you solve problems so easily that sometimes you drive people crazy because they're like, "Hey, slow down. I know you've got it, Clint, but can you slow down for us?" Right? So every why has its gifts, right? As a contributor, people love me because they know that they can call me and I'm going to help. But guess what? My own family knows that. Oh gosh, Dad's out doing something for someone else, and he's not going to make it to dinner tonight. So you have to learn to set limits on the strength can also become your biggest weakness. So I think if you ask yourself, okay, what are the patterns in my life, and how can I use those patterns for the positive, right? As a contributor, I know that I'm here to make a difference. So what I try to do is try to find the organizations like yours, Clint, like the Montessori network. I want to help you guys because I know that the work that you do is important and it's making a difference in the lives of children. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here during spring break on my day off. I told Lindsay, yes, it's my day off, but I'll come into the office, I'll get in front of the camera, and I'll present to you guys because I truly believe in what you guys do. And that's me making that choice. But the rest of the week, I'm not doing any work because I can very easily get sucked into wanting to
Yeah.
help. And we all have those tendencies. So take a look at yourself and do a self inventory. You don't have to take the YOS, but if you go to my website, there's information there, and you can either take the test yourself or you can set up an appointment with me, and we can have a conversation.
Yeah, that's perfect. Again, I put that in the chat for everybody. Make sure you go check out whynotleadership.com. Dan, I want to thank you for your time on the day off. I'm going to let you get back to spring break. Enjoy the time off, and we'll hope to have you back and do this again.
I'd love to, Clint. Let's connect. Like I said in the pre-show, I connected with you on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you and learn more. I put
Awesome.
my email in the chat also, so if anybody wants to just email me directly, that's great. And thank you so much. Continue to do the work that you do. Please say thank you to Lindsay, who introduced me to you, and I look
will.
forward to hearing from some of your listeners today.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody, for joining us again, and have a great rest of the day. And see you on the next one. Take
See
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.